Before Rome ruled the world, there was another power, a civilization so mighty, so advanced, so terrifying to its enemies, that when it finally fell, Rome didn't just defeat it, Rome erased it. This is the story of Carthage, the forgotten empire that nearly changed the course of human history forever. The story begins not in Africa, but across the sea, in the ancient Phoenician city of Tyre, in what is today Lebanon. Around 814 BC, a Phoenician princess named Elissa, known to history as Queen Dido, fled her homeland after her brother, King Pygmalion, murdered her husband to seize his wealth. She gathered a fleet of ships, loyal followers, and the sacred treasures of her people, and sailed west into the unknown. When she reached the northern coast of Africa, she struck a bargain with the local Berber king. She could have as much land as an ox hide could cover. Clever and determined, Dido cut the ox hide into the thinnest possible strips, laid them end to end, and enclosed an entire hilltop overlooking the sea. On that hill, she founded a city. She called it Carthage, the new city. We know it as Carthage. From those humble beginnings, Carthage grew with astonishing speed. Blessed with a perfect natural harbor, fertile land, and the inherited genius of Phoenician trade, the city became the commercial heart of the Western Mediterranean. Carthaginian merchants were everywhere. Their ships carried purple dye, fine glass, silver from Spain, gold from West Africa, tin from the distant shores of Britain. They established colonies across North Africa, in Sicily, Sardinia, Corsica, Malta, and southern Spain. By the 4th century BC, Carthage controlled an empire stretching nearly 3,000 miles across the Mediterranean world. Their navy was unmatched. Their wealth was legendary. And their city, with its towering multi-story buildings, its massive double harbor, its walls stretching 22 miles around, was one of the largest cities on Earth, home to nearly 700,000 people. Rome, at this point, was still a regional power in central Italy. Carthage was the superpower of the ancient world. But who were the Carthaginians? What was life actually like inside this great city? Carthaginian society was remarkably diverse. At its core were the descendants of the original Phoenician settlers, deeply proud of their heritage, speaking a Semitic language closely related to Hebrew. Over centuries, they intermarried with the local Libyan Berber people, producing a mixed population called the Libyo-Phoenicians. Beyond the city walls lived Numidian tribes, fierce, skilled horsemen who would alternately serve as Carthage's greatest allies and most dangerous enemies. Carthage was governed not by a king, but by a republic. 2 elected magistrates called Tophets led the government each year. A powerful senate of wealthy aristocrats made major decisions. An independent council of 104 judges kept generals and officials accountable, punishing failure or corruption without mercy. It was, in many ways, more democratic than most ancient civilizations. Women in Carthage held a notably higher status than in Greece or Rome. They could own property, conduct business, and participate in religious life. Queen Dido herself was celebrated not just as a founder, but as a symbol of intelligence and strength. The markets of Carthage were dazzling. Merchants from Egypt, Greece, Persia, and sub-Saharan Africa crowded the streets. You could buy anything: spices, silk, exotic animals, intricate jewelry, weapons forged from Spanish steel. Carthage didn't just trade goods. It traded ideas, cultures, and civilizations. At the heart of Carthaginian life was religion, ancient, powerful, and deeply mysterious.
The supreme god was Baal Haman, lord of the sky, master of storms and fertility. But the goddess most beloved by the Carthaginian people was Tanit, a mother goddess, protector of the city, whose symbol, a circle above a line above a triangle, appeared on thousands of amulets, walls, and tombstones across the empire. Temples rose across the city. Priests performed elaborate rituals. Sacred animals were kept in temple precincts. Music, incense, and firelight filled the nights of Carthage's religious calendar. But there is one aspect of Carthaginian religion that has haunted historians for centuries. In the heart of the city lay a sacred precinct called the Tophet. Archaeologists have uncovered thousands of urns here, containing the cremated bones of infants and young children. Ancient Greek and Roman writers claimed that Carthaginians practiced child sacrifice, burning children alive as offerings to Baal Haman in times of crisis. Was it true? The debate rages to this day. Some archaeologists believe the evidence supports ritualized sacrifice. Others argue the Tophet was simply a special cemetery for children who died naturally. The truth may never be fully known. What we do know is this: Carthage was a civilization of profound spiritual devotion, of ancient rites stretching back to the earliest days of Phoenician civilization. Whatever happened in the Tophet, it meant something sacred and solemn to the people of Carthage. For centuries, Carthage and Rome had coexisted, trading partners, even allies. But as Rome expanded southward and Carthage extended its reach into Sicily, collision became inevitable. What followed was one of the most brutal series of conflicts in ancient history: the Punic Wars. The First Punic War began in 264 BC over control of Sicily. Rome, traditionally a land power, did something remarkable. It built an entire navy, almost from scratch, modeled on a captured Carthaginian warship. After 23 years of grinding warfare on land and sea, Carthage was defeated. Sicily was lost. But the worst was yet to come. In the aftermath of defeat, Carthage faced a catastrophic mercenary revolt, thousands of unpaid soldiers turning on their employer. The city barely survived, and from the chaos emerged a man who would change everything: Hamilcar Barca, a brilliant general, a burning patriot, and the father of the most dangerous military commander the ancient world had ever seen. His son was named Hannibal.
The story goes that young Hannibal begged his father to take him to war in Spain. Hamilcar agreed, but only if the boy swore an oath. Hannibal placed his hand on the altar of Baal and swore eternal hatred toward Rome. He kept that oath.
In 218 BC, Hannibal launched the Second Punic War with one of history's most audacious gambits. He marched an army of 90,000 soldiers, 12,000 cavalry, and 37 war elephants from Spain, across the Pyrenees, through southern Gaul, and over the Alps in the dead of winter. Half his army died in the crossing. The elephants suffered terribly. The cold, the altitude, and the hostile mountain tribes took a devastating toll.
But Hannibal emerged into Italy, and Italy would never be the same. At the Trebia River, he destroyed a Roman army. At Lake Trasimene, he ambushed and annihilated another. 15,000 Romans killed in 3 hours. And then came Cannae.
In 216 BC, on a dusty plain in southern Italy, Hannibal faced a Roman army of 86,000 men, the largest Rome had ever assembled. His own force was significantly smaller.
What happened next is still studied in military academies around the world. Hannibal deliberately allowed his center to bend backward under Roman pressure, drawing the Roman legions inward, packing them tighter and tighter, until his superior cavalry had swept around both flanks and closed the trap.
By sunset, 70,000 Roman soldiers were dead. It remains one of the greatest tactical victories in all of military history. And yet, Rome did not break. The Senate refused to negotiate. New armies were raised. Rome adopted a strategy of harassment rather than pitched battle. Slowly, inexorably, Hannibal's position in Italy deteriorated. Supplies dwindled. Reinforcements never came.
In 202 BC, Roman general Scipio Africanus took the war to Africa itself. Hannibal was recalled to defend Carthage. At the Battle of Zama, the two greatest generals of the ancient world finally met face to face. Scipio won. Carthage sued for peace. The terms were crushing. Massive reparations, surrender of the navy, loss of all overseas territories. The empire was broken, but the city still stood.
For 50 years, Carthage recovered. Stripped of its empire, it rebuilt through pure commerce and became wealthy again. Too wealthy, thought Rome. In the Roman Senate, an old man named Cato ended every single speech, no matter the topic, with the same 5 words. Carthago delenda est. Carthage must be destroyed.
Ceterum senseo Carthaginem esse delendam.
Rome manufactured a pretext. In 149 BC, they issued demands they knew Carthage could never accept, including the demand to abandon their city entirely and move inland, away from the sea. Carthage refused. The Third Punic War was not really a war. It was a siege, a slow, suffocating strangulation of a great city. For 3 years, Carthage held out. The people melted down gold jewelry to make weapons. Women cut off their hair to weave bowstrings. They fought street by street, house by house, with desperate, heartbreaking courage. In 146 BC, the walls finally fell. Roman soldiers swept through the city. The fighting continued for 6 more days as the last survivors made their stand in the massive temple of Eshmun on the hilltop. When all hope was gone, the high priest's wife appeared on the temple roof, holding her children. She condemned her husband for surrendering, threw her children into the flames, and leaped in after them. Carthage burned for 17 days. 700,000 people had once lived here. 50,000 survivors were sold into slavery. The rest were dead. Rome plowed the ruins under. The greatest rival Rome ever faced was gone, erased from the earth, exactly as Cato had demanded. We remember Rome. We celebrate Greece. We study Egypt. But Carthage, the civilization that built the Western Mediterranean, that produced history's greatest battlefield commander, that sustained a republic for 600 years. Carthage, we barely remember it all. Because history, as they say, is written by the victors. Rome burned their libraries, destroyed their temples, silenced their voices for 2,000 years. But the ruins are still there, on a quiet hill overlooking the sea in modern Tunisia. The stones of the Tophet, the ghost of the great harbor,
the columns of temples to gods whose names were almost forgotten. They are still there, waiting to be remembered. This was Carthage.